Good afternoon, my name is Marki and I'm here today with you on CP37. Today we will be analyzing the Canadian economy and discuss our plan to maximize the efficiency of the economy. Today, our main focus will mostly be shifted towards the unemployment rate as we believe that this is the most impactful to our economy. First, we will look at the principal economic measures. Statistics for real GDP are shown here. As we can see, a shocking drop in the economy happens when COVID hit in February and it hits its lowest rate in April during its contraction phase, but flips and starts increasing back to the regular economy despite uncertainty if we will ever be able to get out of the damage COVID has created. The other two principles are unemployment and inflation rate, and they share really similar patterns to GDP. To help fix the economy, me and my partners have come up with a solution. Please welcome Marko.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Nice to have you here. So, you're aware our goal here is to stabilize the economy, and I would like to have you elaborate on how you believe the government should approach this issue.
Yeah, so I've been looking more into the fiscal policy. Do you know what that is?
Oh, I do, but if you didn't take grade 12 economics, you wouldn't. So I'll explain. Fiscal policy is the use by the government of its powers of expenditure, taxation, and borrowing to stabilize the economy. How would we use this in our plan?
Okay, so basically, the government should use the expansionary fiscal policy. By using this policy, they should increase government spending, which is exactly what they're doing with CERT. But taxes can also be decreased to help people who are struggling in this time of crisis, to give them more freedom with their money. Lowering taxes can be very costly for the government, especially since they're already paying for CERT. However, this implication can decrease the amount of time needed for the economy to become stable again. Once it's stable enough, the government can start increasing taxes once again, slowly, just to repay the money used, but also maintaining a stable economy.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so as we know, circular flow of income is a model of the economy that sees GDP as a total of all the money payments made to businesses and individuals. So Marko, I would ask you, how would these fiscal policy actions influence the circular flow of income and aggregate demand?
Well, government spending and decreasing taxes are both forms of injections into the circular flow of income in the economy. These injections cause an increase in GDP, which causes an increase in aggregate demand. Every time there's an injection of new demand into the circular flow of income, there's likely to be a multiplier effect. This is because an injection of extra income leads to more spending, which causes more income, and so on. The multiplier effect refers to the increase in final income arising from any new injection of spending. If the multiplier effect is 1.5, it means that for each $1 of stimulus, it will lead to $1.5 in income. This type of effect is due to increased demand, which results in increased consumption and spending. This encourages business to invest, expand, and hire additional workers, which enhances the effect on income and GDP. In turn, increasing income and economic activity also leads to more spending and consumption. Therefore, fiscal policy does have a multiplier effect.
Wow, that's some valuable information. Do you have any evidence statistically on how we can improve the economy based on the fiscal policy?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that. I actually created a fiscal policy graph right here.
Well, let's bring it up. Okay, let's analyze the statistics for this.
Alright, as we can see on the top left with the chart, the arrow is pointing to the gap and it says a recessionary gap.
As we are clearly behind the potential output.
Exactly. And on the left axis, we see price level, which is about 120. And our current real GDP is 95.8 billion.
So Econ's law is here to determine the gap from our current GDP to our potential output, which is 9.3 billion.
Using this gap value, we can see that the potential output real GDP would be 105.1 billion. Then, using the value of MPC, which is 0.35, and the value of MPW, which is 0.65, we can calculate the money multiplier, which is 1.54. Using this value and Oken's law to determine the gap, we can determine the change in spending, which is 6 billion. So, to help the economy, the government needs to spend $6 billion into the economy to fix our recessionary gap.
Well, that proves our point. Marko. So, using the business cycle and aggregate supply and demand analysis, explain the direction in which the economy is moving and suggest the dangers that lie ahead if we should continue to move in the same direction.
Well, according to the business cycle, we are in the recession/contraction phase, which is not out of the ordinary when looking in the long term of an economy. The problem with this recession phase is that people were forced, because of COVID-19, to stay home and out of work, which caused them to spend less in fear of what will happen in the future. This caused the real GDP to decrease and go into the negatives. This led to lower unemployment and less income. And if these patterns continue and are not fixed, the Canadian economy will go so far deep to the point it might reach a depression. The cause of depression would result in GDP constantly declining, high unemployment, and a price deflation.
Okay, Marko, thank you for your time, analysis, and your opinion, and it was great having you here.
Thank you for having me. Have a good day.
You too. Bye. Okay, now on the topic of unemployment, we have a pre-recorded interview with a university student, and we are going to talk about how his life has been affected by the COVID-19 crisis. Hi, it's your host again, Marko for CP37, and I'm here today with Miguel Parra, who is an economist for the Central Bank of Canada, and Marko Zarvansky, who is an economic analyst for the Government of Canada. And I'm here also with Guillermo Parra, who is a university student who was heavily affected by the crisis of COVID-19. Guillermo, tell me more about yourself.
Hi, my name is Guillermo Parra. I'm a university student. I study at the University of Guelph. My focus in my studies is economics and finance. I'm in my third year, and I'm currently on track to graduating in 2022.
Hello, Guillermo. My name is Marko. I would like to ask a question. Would you mind elaborating a bit more on your job before COVID and how COVID has affected your lifestyle and your employment status?
Yeah, absolutely. So before COVID, I gained the position in 2018 as CEO of Unity Inc. in Mississauga, Ontario. Sadly, I am no longer in this position. As of right now, I am unemployed, so I've been living off my savings. This obviously means that I have to really track of my groceries. I can't really eat out as much. I did have to move to Guelph as the rent is cheaper. And yeah, my life has been negatively impacted in that sense.
Thank you.
Okay, Guillermo, my name is Miguel Parra. As you know, I'm a economist for the Central Bank of Canada. And I just wanted to tell you our plan that me and the two others have created to help aid you in this crisis. So firstly, we're planning on lowering interest rates, which will allow businesses to borrow more money at a cheaper rate, resulting in more production and ultimately more labor for people like you to go out and get a job. And I feel like this plan can really benefit you in this situation.
Yeah, I actually think that's a great idea, as lowering interest rates does increase investment, which then increases jobs. I find that to be really, that'll be really helpful in the long run.
Okay, well, thank you for your time, Guillermo.
Now, next we will be meeting with the economist for the Bank of Canada. You know what? It's a beautiful day outside. Let's take this meeting outside. Hi, so Marki, and we've traveled to see Miguel Parra, who is an economist at the Central Bank of Canada. And we're going to ask him some questions and get his thoughts and opinions about our plan and goals for the future with the economy. Miguel Parra, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. So first I want to ask, what drawbacks will the fiscal policy actions have?
Good question. So in expansionary fiscal policy, many challenges may arise. For example, government debt will skyrocket as a result of increased government spending to try and stimulate cash flow in the economy. So another con are regional variations. For example, the situation in Newfoundland might be different than the one in Ontario, as they have different demand, supply, and exports. For example, Newfoundland specializes in fish, etc., and Ontario auto parts and vehicles. Although the pros do outweigh the cons, as we know that we'd be much worse off in the economy if the government had not intervened with CERB during this COVID crisis.
But what about the budget deficit?
Okay, so as we know, in 2015, Justin Trudeau claimed that by 2019 the budget would balance itself, but as we know, due to the COVID crisis, our budget deficit continues to increase. So with the government spending an abundant amount of money to aid the unemployed workers, the amount of money that we're spending and printing is much more than the government earns in taxes.
What about timelines though?
So recognition lag was found as private income as well as investments went down. So in other words, causing the government to crowd out the private sector. So not allowing businesses to borrow will reduce their chances and to expand and generate income as well as profit. Lag was made with CERB as the government spent $81.6 billion in a stimulus to help keep households keep money flowing in the economy.
Hear that, people? 81 billion.
But also considering impact lag, as we have not experienced the full result of our actions since the pandemic is not yet over.
What actions can the Bank of Canada make to supplement the fiscal policy that you have?
Okay, so the Bank of Canada must lower the overnight lending rate between banks, which will then lower interest rates, pushing consumers to buy and purchase goods of higher values, which will obviously stimulate spending in the economy. Which, as we know, during this crisis of COVID-19 is a necessity if we want to bring the economy back to where it was before.
Okay, so what kind of problems can occur through this?
Okay, so although lowering interest rates to a certain degree may be beneficial, but once you lower them to a point where it makes no difference, that's called a liquidity trap. In other words, you have to figure out a different way to increase private investment.
Okay, so thank you for coming, Miguel. Thank you for your opinion. Alright, done. Alright. Okay, so now we're gonna have a recording with one of our close friends, and we're gonna be seeing his insights and expertise on his economic opinions.
Hello everyone, I'm Michael Amodio, an HBA 1 student of the Richard Ivey School of Business. I'm here to explain a new economic theory, one that combines Keynesian and Austrian economics into something completely new. The gist of the theory is that governments can use deficit financing indefinitely, even under a gold standard, providing they tolerate fractional reserve banking. The theory requires a few axioms, but overall is consistent with our general understanding of neoclassical economics. Guillermo is currently working on the mathematical formulas that can be used to solidify and prove this theory, at least in the academic community. The theory's axioms state that transactions happen instantaneously. And that may seem like a bit of a stretch. Obviously, transactions don't happen instantaneously. But a lot of economic models assume they do for purposes of having it all written down on paper, and it's generally consistent with other neoclassical models. Another axiom is that government bonds, or loans to the government, are risk-free. You will make your money back. And although history has shown that's not always 100% true, for general purposes, we can assume that. And that's because governments are generally very, very consistent at returning money that's loaned to them. The theory states that even under a gold standard, the interest rate when it comes to risk-free loans, aka buying government bonds, loaning money to the government, will approach zero, always. And the basis of this theory is that when money is spent into existence, or when money just exists in an economy, it never disappears. It's eternal. It's always there. When you spend money, it doesn't disappear. It goes from one bank account to another, oftentimes within the same bank. For the purposes of this argument, we can assume that there's only one bank, and anybody who has a bank account has a bank account with this one bank. Obviously, that's not true, but the banking system acts as if it's one bank when it's collaborated over a large economy. So when people spend money around, it's not moving anywhere in terms of the banking system. It's jumping from one account to another, but still being part of the same bank. If you go to the store and buy groceries, the money's going from your bank account to the store owners, and some of it's going to the employees of that store. Either way, it's staying within the system. It's not going anywhere. Banks use this money to make loans to businesses and individuals. If the return that these businesses and individuals will pay back to the bank is higher than what the people who have their money in the bank care about for their rate of return, the loans will be made. If a business promises to return 5% in interest-bearing loans, and the people in the bank only want a return of 4%, well, the loan will be made, and the markup of 1% will go to the bank. Now, why would people loan money to the government at 0%, just because it's risk-free? And the reason is because eventually all the loans in the general economy that satisfy interest-bearing returns will be satisfied. Money is eternal. Once it's loaned out, it still stays within the banking system. Eventually, every single possible loan that will have an interest rate higher than an expected value of 0 will be made, leaving the real return of money at 0. Just to repeat once more, every time loans are made, the money does not get destroyed. It just gets recirculated within the same bank. The loans have been satisfied, the borrowers got what they wanted, and the money is still there ready to be loaned out because it's put back in the same bank. Because of this, there'll always be an infinite supply of money that is just sitting there in the banking system, ready to be loaned out. Because the government bonds are risk-free, and the money would otherwise just be sitting in the bank doing absolutely nothing, because it is always there, the government will always be able to borrow this money, providing the return that they guarantee is over 0. So it could be 0.00001%. And this is why I say that the interest rate for risk-free loans will approach 0, even under gold standard. Of course, the system relies on fractional reserve banking, but it still is viable and can easily be applied to developing countries that need to use a fixed currency system while still needing to use deficit financing to fund vital infrastructure. Oftentimes, developing countries can't use their own fiat money because it would hold no merit or validity on an international scale. This theory would allow these countries to use the gold standard or any fixed money system, perhaps pegging their currency to a stronger one like the US dollar, and still being able to use consistent and perpetual deficit financing to keep the economy moving. Of course, this theory is unproven, but it does hold validity and may possibly be in the textbooks one day.
ECE includes you and me.
And no M, we do for the man them.
ICS, that's our way to success.
That's what economics stands for.
Take grade 12 economics.
The economy, this single place will drive it.
GDP, unemployment, inflation.
Trust in JC, that's patience. We make money, put the work in.
Us is success, that's up.
Synonym.
Hey.